Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. My name's Steve Wraith.
I'm Malcolm McDonald.
And I'm John Gibson.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters. As always, we are here to look back on Newcastle United's week at St James's Park. First of all, lads, we are going to start with the game against Wolves. Now, well done. You both predicted the result. You both predicted 1-1. I went for a slightly bizarre 1-0 win and Joe Linton to score. What on earth I was thinking of, God only knows. But it wasn't a feast of football, Malcolm, was it?
No, and having predicted 1-1, it just left me really disappointed that they lived up to lived down to my expectations, should I say. There is just nothing whatsoever up front, and that's putting a massive pressure on the midfield and then subsequently on the back four, and it's even been showing with the goalkeeper as well.
Yeah,
because all of those guys, they daren't make a mistake and let a goal in because they're never going to be able to retrieve it.
Exactly.
And so the pressure is absolutely immense. And I was deeply unhappy at the reaction of Steve Bruce after the game. Deeply unhappy in the way that he criticised Dubravka, and yet the forwards haven't had a kick. They were invisible. They didn't get the centre halves sweating on the afternoon.
Well,
and he never mentions them.
John?
Our goal came from a centre half crossing the ball to another centre half to score.
Yes.
And
where were the forwards? If you actually had a look, they weren't in the action whatsoever.
But I mean,
they weren't looking.
Absolutely. The point that really disturbs, and we've been banging on about it, all three of us, all season.
Yeah.
But we've never scored more than one goal in a game, which immediately there's a mistake in the back. You cannot win because you're not going to get a second one.
Sure.
We've got 6 goals in 10 league games this season, which is the worst in the joint worst in the 127-year history of Newcastle United. Now that is absolutely phenomenal, and it cost an awful lot of money to put our front three together. And we've also got to remember that Joe Linton and Almiron are both ever presence this season.
Yes.
When we say they've only got one goal between them, those two have played in every single game and haven't scored.
And as each game goes past, Almiron, when he looks at the opposing goal, you can just see his bottle go.
Yeah,
he just crumbles, and he doesn't want to go there. He doesn't want to cross into the penalty area. He doesn't want the ball at his feet to cause him to have to make a run goalwards. He doesn't want to do any of it.
Yeah.
The interesting thing as well for me, Malcolm, is that as a three up front, they don't play in tandem. They don't get close to one another. The two wide guys, Almiron and Maximum, are both individuals that want to do their own thing. They get on the ball, they want to do their tricks. They don't play it into the centre forward, go for the knockdown. There's no link. There's two guys that are individuals and a centre forward who's not a centre forward.
So Maximum, he is an outside left. I don't think there's any question about that. He's a left-sided player, and that's where he wants to play and dribble and what have you. He needs to score desperately as well. Now, last season, Almiron played outside left. Joe Linton last season played outside left. We've got 3 outside lefts, and then making up the forward line for Newcastle United.
Yeah.
And then
it's madness.
And then Atsu's an outside left.
Yeah,
Matt Ritchie's coming back, and
then
where
Mark
does he play?
Ritchie's coming back.
Outside left,
at
but he
least
can
he's
play.
gifted and can go and play on the right-hand side, even though he's left-footed.
Yeah.
But that is causing such a restriction in Newcastle's play. And the people who are suffering aren't the forwards. It's the back four, the goalkeeper and the mid four. And you can see the frustration that's building up. And when you get a lovely, young, calm lad just suddenly making a tackle of desperation in the middle of the park.
Sean Longstaff.
Yeah.
Got himself sent off. And it was through nothing but utter frustration on his part, because it was all going so horribly wrong. And it came at the end. There was, and here I'm going to turn my criticism away from the players, and I'm going to point the finger very firmly at Steve Bruce.
Yeah.
10 minutes before Wolves scored, before they equalised, Newcastle's play suddenly went shambolic. Things weren't happening. Forwards had disappeared. The defenders were looking up and they couldn't see anybody there. They could. Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is get trapped in possession on the ball with no black and white shirts available, and all you've got are the green of Wolves coming at you, and that's how it started to go. As a manager, you should see that within 20, 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And you should be getting a message on as to how to correct it. And if that doesn't work within another 30 or 60 seconds, you say, right, get yourselves warmed up, all you subs, and then you decide who's coming on, and you make changes. Yeah. You make change to change what's going wrong.
Yeah.
And Steve Bruce, he does these little finger gestures, and none of the players are taking any example. It seems to me it's more for the crowd than anything else.
Yeah.
He didn't realise what was going on.
Yeah.
Now I was sat with two ex-Newcastle United players, and all three of us saw what was happening within seconds of it beginning.
Yeah.
All three of us. And we're saying, well, Steve Bruce has got to change it. And we're chuntering on for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Wolves then score. And then Steve Bruce says, oh, dear me. Oh, right, the subs get warmed up. Let's think about making changes.
Yeah.
It was all too late. The job of a manager is to see that. Why didn't the coaches see it?
Yeah.
And come out and say, look, I think we ought to make a change. But not a coach came out of the dugout and started to have a chat with Steve Bruce whatsoever. And I thought, but it's right in front of you. You're not seeing it, and we're up in the stand.
Yeah.
We're seeing it. Yeah. And it was so glaringly obvious. And in the end, Sean Longstaff, because until this 10-minute period started, I felt that the two Longstaff brothers, they were pretty much in control of the midfield. They were only struggling at times for the lack of others, particularly up front. But in that 10 minutes, I could see him get more and more and more frustrated, and he was starting to overstretch for things. Well, that's when you're going to make silly challenges, silly tackles, and that's what happened. He gets sent off. Newcastle are going to be without him for a number of games, and for me, that's an absolute tragedy, because the best thing that's been happening at Newcastle for these past 2 or 3 weeks is that partnership of the two Longstaff brothers in the middle of the park, and I'm seeing other people reacting off it. The only people who aren't reacting off it are the forwards. Yeah. They are oblivious to just about everything that's going on. And certainly when it's on its way up there, they're oblivious to the ball.
Are we putting this down then? Are we putting this down to the positional play? Are we putting this down to the fact that they're all left-handed players, or they're all left-sided players? Are we putting it down to that? As simple as that. So is it a simple case of switching them round?
They're not just left-sided. They're actually fully left-sided. Last season, so Maximum, he's an outside left.
Yeah.
But Almiron played outside left last season. Joe Linton played outside left last season. So basically, all three are wanting to play in that left side channel.
Yeah.
And that leaves 4/5 of the pitch all the way across to the right wing. And they don't want to be there. They just don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And so I think the whole thing is so utterly confused. And you look at the midfield, and they are confused by it all.
Yeah.
Because they're just wanting to knock the ball into people's runs.
Yeah.
And the runs aren't there. They're not happening. How many times did Joe Linton control the ball with his back getting into the centre half? Not once. How many times did he get his head to the ball? Not once. Well, if you've got a big centre forward there who he's 6'3" and playing like he's 5'3".
Yeah.
And in the end, it all goes wrong in midfield because of it.
Yeah.
The big
and
problem.
the keeper makes a mistake as well.
The big problem up front, when we say, do you rest Joe Linton or move him out to the left? Do you rest Almiron? Drop them is the real word. We've got 7 forwards, as I was talking about last week, 7 for 3 positions, but we haven't got the right men to go. There's not an orthodox centre forward in the 7 outside of Carroll, who is not fit.
Yeah.
So if you take him out the situation, which he's, I believe, almost certain still to be out of the situation for West Ham, and you didn't want to play Joe Linton orthodox centre forward, who would you then play orthodox centre forward? It would have to be Gale, because it would have to be Gale or Muto.
That's not his game.
Well, of course, you can't change it then, Malcolm, can you?
And for me, the ideal partnership in the club is Carroll at centre forward, Gale playing off him and looking to make runs beyond.
Two things about that. Two things about that. First of all, Carroll ain't fit, so
he's not fit.
We're not going to get. It's like the great hope that Carroll's going to come back and be the young kid he was when he was here the first time. Well, fitness-wise tells you he isn't going to be that.
Yeah.
No.
And to get the best, Gale, Carroll's not fit at all. Gale played 7 minutes a couple of games back as a sub, and he come on in the 89th minute, or was it the 90th minute, just to play the injury time against Wolves.
Yeah.
So he's played a maximum of 10 minutes since the end of last season, because he didn't play pre-season. And he hasn't.
That's right.
So how on earth, if
is he going to be match
you've got to
fit?
put him on to score goals, because he's the only one that can finish.
And you've got to put him on when he's really comfortable and confident in himself. If you put him on where he's got little niggles and doubts and what have you, he's never going to be a success.
No.
I've always had the impression that he's a confidence player, and that he gets a couple of goals and his confidence is building, and then he gets better and better and better. But he needs somebody with him who can help him to build that confidence, somebody who can just get little flick-ons and knock it into the space for him to use his pace and get beyond the back line. And it's just not happening, and it's almost as if, the couple of times that he has gone on, it's just, oh, look, just get on there and
the conundrum is,
see
though,
what you can do.
Malcolm,
There's
unless
no thought process to it.
Unless he gets time on the pitch, he's not going to get the fitness, the sharpness that he wants.
That's
so
right.
he's got to get some time on the pitch, and he's getting none.
And you can do so much on the training field. You can lift your fitness up so far, but then there is always that last 10% that you can only get by playing matches. And so if they want to get the best out of Dwight Gale, they've got to start playing him. But he doesn't want to play with Joe Linton. I don't think he really wants to play with Almiron, that's for sure. And
at the moment, he's got to play with Joe Linton because there isn't anybody else.
Yeah. I know, but it's not a good partnership. In fact, I'm not so sure that Joe Linton has got the ability to make a good partnership.
Yeah,
I think he's completely out of position.
Why did they spend 40 million on it?
Oh,
if they did.
John,
Well, that's if all the bits and bobs are paid, he would become a 40 million pound player.
Yeah, I don't know, because and even Rafa, he made it publicly known that he just wasn't worth even half of that.
You've talked already, you've touched on it a little bit. Something which it did annoy me a little bit this week was that Steve Bruce came out and criticised Dubravka for the error that he made, which led to their goal. Came out though and said it was his job to defend Almiron and Joe Linton because they were young, inexperienced players trying to find their way in the Premier League. I found that bizarre. I found, he hung his keeper out to dry. Somebody who's probably done over the last...
just given a new contract to.
He's given a 6-year deal to. But somebody who ultimately has done a lot for the club in a short period of time. Ultimately, one of our better players. So for me, bizarre. John, what do you make of that?
Well, totally bizarre. For a start, two things. A goalkeeper is always going to make a mistake at some time because the definition of the position he plays in, if he makes a mistake 99 times out of 100, it's going to end up in a goal.
Yeah.
If a centre-half makes a mistake, perhaps a goalkeeper will pull him out.
Yeah.
And the same with the midfielder. But with a goalkeeper, he's going to carry the can, if you like.
Yeah.
Now, and that is what happened with him. Now, the interesting thing is when you say, quite rightly, this guy was, and of course, as Malcolm has already said, and I said last week, if you're playing the back five or you're the goalkeeper, one mistake and Newcastle United aren't going to win because they don't score a second goal, so they're going to get a draw or they're going to get beat. So that's the sort of pressure you're under. And secondly, the interesting thing is that if you decide that you can criticise Dubravka in public because he's a senior pro in quotes, and you can't criticise the two people that play up front because they're young lads. Let me add that they're young lads who are both the record signings of Newcastle United.
Yes.
Almiron at 21 million was the record signing until Joe Linton come along at 40 million.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that they're inexperienced and we've got to wrap them up in cotton wool when they stand today the most expensive two players in Newcastle's history, but they must be protected? And somebody else can't be protected. I don't follow that.
It depends on the player as well, doesn't it? Because ultimately, I remember when Pavel was criticised by Kevin Keegan, and he took it to heart.
Yes.
It can have an opposite effect. So
yes, it can. But can I just make a point that Steve Bruce is protecting two players who aren't doing it out in the field, and the more he protects them, the more they won't do it on the field.
Good point, Malcolm. Yeah, I agree.
And so that seriously concerns me. When I was 19, younger than both Almiron and Joe Linton, the manager walked into the dressing room and said, "You are going to score 30 goals this season, otherwise you can come and see me at the end of the season. And I will really let you know what I think of you." And the following season, because I'd finished one short of that, I'd only got 29. The following season, at the beginning of the season, he says, "Right, 30 goals this season," and there were less games because we were promoted into the second division. And he said, "And don't forget, you owe me one from last season." How many does Joe Linton owe us? How many does Almiron owe us?
No, it's a good point.
From the games that they've been playing, Almiron from last season, and
it's a desperate, Malcolm, though, if we were looking to try to not commit suicide and be at all positive about Newcastle, because the situation can't change body-wise until January, because we can't get anybody else in. We either sink or swim till January with the squad we've got. The difficulty is that having assembled the squad we have, and it cost £102 million to put the 7 that play up front together, and an 8th man,
Yeah.
where Jacob Murphy's played so badly for us that he's out on loan at the moment, but you had another 12 million for him.
Yeah.
So there's been a huge effort to try to get forwards that score goals that just hasn't worked. And by the way, Jacob Murphy is yet another outside left. But wait a minute, what do we do about the attack? I mean, we've talked about the 3 people that played in the last game and how it hasn't worked. I'm going to take Maximum out of this because he's attractive, he's given us hope. And at the moment, he is the best hope we've got to raise a crowd that's absolutely destroyed. Wait a minute, Omar. Wait a minute. He's the best hope we've got to raise the crowd because when he gets the ball, they think, oh, something might happen, and because he's fresh and because he's enthusiastic.
Yeah.
But if he plays and he plays outside left, what do we do with the other 2 positions? Because we haven't got Carroll to go in there, and I think he's always a problem when we have got him because of his injury record. Yeah. So that leaves you with Gale, who we've talked about. It leaves you with Mutu. Yeah. It leaves you with Atsu, whose goal-scoring record is horrendous. Yeah. So what do we do this weekend when we go to West Ham if we accept that we haven't got Carroll, but we've still got to pick a front 3? Who would be the 3? Yeah. And that's a problem facing. I'm not trying to defend Steve Bruce anything, but I'm saying park Brucey over there and just talk about what we can do with the squad of players we've got. Yeah. And I think one of the obvious answers is that we must, even with a chronic lack of time on the pitch and an obvious situation where Gale could never last 90 minutes because of that chronic lack of time on the pitch, we've got to give him a throw. A, because he's the only one likely to score, and B, because we've got the 3 up front with 1 goal between them. So what do? You play Maximum, you play Gale, and you play one other, which has got to probably be Joe Linton.
What you might finish up with is because of the problems with them that have been in the team so far. You replace one of them with Gale, and Gale is in a completely unsuitable situation because he hasn't got a big man.
But there isn't a perfect answer, Malcolm.
I know, but then we know that his confidence just suddenly plummets.
But there isn't a perfect answer. So if you don't play him, do you play Mutu or do you play?
James McFeely's asking here. He's asking both of you. Would you play Carroll and Gale on Saturday against West Ham if they're both fit?
If Carroll was fit, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the ideal partnership without any shadow of a doubt.
Gale looked a bit chunky when he came on, to be honest.
And I think also.
By the way, if we did play them together, neither of them would make half time because of the lack of match fitness.
But I'm sure that Carroll would love to go down there and play.
Well, of course it's his old
club. Well, of course he would.
Of course, one of his old clubs. But also, if he were there attacking the far post, what a thing for St Maximin to just say, right, I'm going to get some crosses in. But at the moment, when he looks, there's nobody in the box.
Yeah. Well, this is St Maxim, of course, who's on that list on Match of the Day 2, which anybody saw at the graphic.
Yeah,
10 games, Joe Linton, Almira and St Maximum. 1 goal between them and no assists.
No,
I mean, if we got Andy Carroll, is Andy Carroll going to get the ball? Because we're dire at corners, we're dire at free kicks, and we're dire at crossing the ball.
Steve, the best thing that happens, if you play for Newcastle United at the moment in the forward position, the best thing that happens to you, one moment, the best thing that happens to you is that you don't play. Because your stock goes up. We're now looking at Gale and Carroll as the great white hopes of Newcastle United.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Because they haven't played. When in reality, we've accused Carroll of being injury prone, and he hasn't scored 10 league goals in his season since he left Newcastle almost 9 years ago. And we say Gale is a championship striker, but yet we are reduced to rely on these two to try to get us out of the hole.
Because the club has committed to record signing fees to players who should have been recognised last season when they were being scouted as not good enough for the Premiership.
Damien
And
Shanahan's
that's the fact of the matter,
he's made a couple of points in here. He agrees with everything. He said he felt the substitutions were far too late. Especially
so.
changing the forwards.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose the sending off
Yeah.
probably changed part of that, but
it
bringing
does,
people on with 5 minutes to go is neither here
There
nor
was
there.
Gale on with just injury time to go when when you're looking for a goal to win the match and you're looking for him to get some crucial time on the pitch was ludicrous.
Yeah, work on his fitness as much as anything.
Mark Corby suggests that me, you, and Gibbo play on Saturday against.
Well, we'll have as many shots on goal as the three they will.
I tell you what, we'll give it a good go. It's a good shout. I mean, I'd settle for half the money, Mark. Damien Shanahan again says we're sat too deep and invited pressure, so mistakes will happen. It was the team's fault, not just the goalkeeper. So he's defending Dubravka.
Sure. Yes,
fair point.
Indeed, and it is a fair point. But the back four, they're in this catch-22 situation where if we push forward, we're leaving that space. And where do we go with the ball? Because if we knock it 40 yards there, it's going to come straight back. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens every time.
Yeah.
And so therefore, the back four become nervous about knocking it forward. So they start to play little tippy-tappy balls into midfield. And then the midfield, they get turned. And they go, oh, there's nothing up there. Oh, right, so I've got to turn back. And then it's all tippy-tappy between midfield and defence, And they're not wanting to go forward because there's no threat there.
Yeah.
That's the awful thing, there's no threat.
Here's a question, and we've talked, and I've asked who would be the front three under the current circumstances, and we've talked about the lack of goals. Here's a second question, which is that Sean Longstaff has got a 3-match ban.
Yeah.
Who do we play in midfield?
Well, this is a big
He'll play Shelby, won't he?
No, he won't. He'll play Hayden. I'm not saying he should. I'm saying he will play Hayden.
Hayden's back from suspension.
And Matty Longstaff.
Yes.
Too similar?
Hayden's been...
Too similar?
So what Hayden has been regularly in Newcastle's side all this season, apart from last season. You wait till you get the team sheet down there, you'll play Hayden. I'm not advocating what should happen, I'm saying what will happen. Mm-hmm. And the reason he'll play Hayden, if I may, Hayden is because he believes that both Shelby and Key, when we haven't got the ball, are liability because they can't get round the pitch and they don't the high pressure, the high pressing that you wish they can't do. They can't get round the pitch. Now that's something Hayden will do, and I know it's your favourite player. That's why I brought it up. Antagonising you. I know Hayden's your favourite player, which is why I brought it up. But I bet you, bottom line, that he plays Hayden and Matty Longstaff.
Do not see what anybody sees in Hayden.
I know you don't.
All he ever does, and he's facing his own goal a lot of the time, and he just plays the way he's facing. He has no periphery about him at all, and he is so limited to like a 10-yard semicircle.
You would play Shelby.
I wouldn't want to. But
again, it's needs must.
I would rather Shelby. Yeah. I would rather Shelby than Hayden. But what I would say to Matty Longstaff is, when we've got the ball, get forward because he'll knock it. But when the opposition has the ball, I want you to get behind Shelby. I want you to come.
There's no room behind Shelby. He plays on the centre half toes.
I understand that, John. But I would be giving him instruction that he has to
push on.
Push on.
Yeah.
And when he pushes on, he is twice the player. He really is. He's a real threat. He's got that ability to play super little balls into the penalty area. He's got a cracking shot on him. But it's all to no avail when he's playing on the edge of his own box all the time.
And I don't think he does what he's told. I certainly don't think he did
I
under
think
Rafa.
you're right.
And any player that didn't do what they were told were booted out. We've got a few more comments here.
There's an arrogance about him that he wants to play it the way he sees it because he reckons he sees it better than anybody else.
John Ball says he's speaking on the goalkeepers on behalf of the goalkeepers union here. He says Dubravka didn't have much other choice than to come for the cross, but you have to look at the defending in that instance as Johnny is standing totally unmarked. Where's his help? Keith Simmons Jr. says, what about Aaron's? Where's he? I mean, I don't think Aaron's is ever.
Orlando Aaron's.
Yeah, I don't ever think.
Not outside left, by the way.
Not outside left. Stuart Patterson says the team are too deep. Why are we playing 5-4-1 at St James's Park? Bruce has to change it to go more attacking. David Young says 4-3-3, Maximum on the left, Almiron on the right, and Joe Linton in the centre. Get down the flanks and get the crosses in. Damien Shanahan, who's been pretty busy tonight, says need Richie back to get the ball in the box. Keith Simmons says we need to go back to 4-4-2. Bit of an update on what's happening this weekend with the team. It's not expected that Andy Carroll will feature. Doesn't look like he's going to come back from his groin injury, which is a pity. Obviously, Fabian Shaw looks like he's going to be out as well with an injury. But we do look as if we're going to have Matt Ritchie and Lejeune back. They've obviously had respective run-outs. They're back in training. Ritchie might be a surprise. You never know. Ritchie's
well, he's got the guts to start. Lejeune, I would be careful with. He's had a bad injury. He's been out a long time. And I must say, in defence of the players, both Fernandez when he come in and Kieran Clark when he come in has not let Newcastle down.
Fernandez set the goal up.
Not let Newcastle
Fernandez
down.
set the goal up.
He did. So it would be you haven't got a need to rush Lejeune back yet. And Ritchie has got to be on the bench or in the team.
If there was another centre half to go in place of Kieran Clark, I tell you what, I don't think that I would be wrong in thinking put Kieran Clark up front and play him as a target man. Because I've seen him up there, and he did half cause some trouble in the opposing penalty area.
Well, he was about the third top scorer last season or something,
that's
wasn't
right.
he?
And he battles and fights and scraps with people, and he just gets his body to the ball, and he's got no thought whether he's going to get hurt or not. It doesn't matter to him. The ball is the most important thing, and I think that we could do an awful lot worse than just play him up front with Dwight Gale. If Andy Carroll isn't fit, with Dwight Gale, and let Dwight Gale just go running off him, and just use Kieran Clark as a target man. Because at the moment, the major problem is the back four have got nowhere to go with the ball when they've got it. The midfield have got nowhere to go forward because they're seeing nothing. Nothing at all in front of them.
Interesting thing about picking a front three, which is what we've been talking immediately when Carroll isn't available, etc., is that we're thinking you've got to have somebody of a physical presence to play up front, which is the natural thought. That has been Joe Linton. Can it be Kieran Clark? Who would it be if Carroll isn't here? And the interesting thing, and I'm going to answer my own question, but when Newcastle first got Kevin Keegan, I'm talking about as a player, not as a manager, when he came here and the won promotion under Arthur Cox, we played with a fluid, interchanging front three and no orthodox centre forward. The three people were Beardsley, Keegan and Waddle. Now, Waddle was tall, but he never played in the centre of that. He played as a wing. Keegan, theoretically, with Beardsley in the switch. Both little guys. Now, the simple answer to that is the three of them could off-play, man, so you didn't need a target man.
Their movement was absolutely out of this world.
And fabulous on the ball. All three individually, fabulous on the ball. And we haven't got three with that sort of ability.
And they did it with an intelligence and an imagination, and they were constant with it. That they didn't go taking periods off at all, and so the threat was constant.
I just mean, can we play with Gale?
You haven't,
despite his lack of size.
Gale has got doubts about himself. Beardsley, Keegan and Waddle never
Didn't.
ever had a doubt in their lives.
We've got to go, Mal, with what we've got till
I
January.
understand that.
We can dismiss
understand
every
that.
single
That's-
player up there
Yeah.
and not play anybody because they've all got
Yeah.
more minuses than pluses.
One
But
little-
we've got to have somebody.
One little point before I look towards predictions for the weekend. The VAR penalty shout at the end of the game. I mean, it was something
That was bizarre, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, VAR's had a bit of a stinker this weekend, again, in different games. But what was that about? It didn't even feature on Match of the Day 2. But obviously, towards injury time, there was a load of standing around. The referee was looking as if he didn't know what on earth was going on.
Yeah.
We didn't see
signal
any
or
incidents.
anything, did he? And he just sort of kept pointing.
Yeah.
To
I mean, VAR's got worse and worse and worse as the season's
And it's
gone
abysmal
on.
at Newcastle because the screens no
how
help.
it's being used.
Yeah,
and
the VAR
abused
system
and-
used
yeah.
by the referees. And,
Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing that staggers me, and yes, this wouldn't answer the fans being absolutely bemused about it, but referees haven't been encouraged to, well, they haven't done it at all, to run beside the pitch and look at the monitor.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody in the ground can see what's
Why
happening.
didn't that referee on Saturday go across?
But they're not doing it in the Premier League. The interesting thing is, though,
why
they
not?
did in November. The interesting thing is that it's in the paper here, in the Times, that the Premier League chairmen are getting together and they're saying this should be used. The screen
Well, it
at
should
the
be.
side of the pitch.
I watched the Rugby
And
World Cup on Saturday and there's no issues with it.
they're having a meeting on November 14th, I think, to discuss and try to get brought into it the use of this screen by the side of the pitch to make decisions rather than the 10 minutes it takes upstairs and it comes back, etc., etc. And I always thought we saw that during the summer, and it worked an awful lot
worked
better.
in Russia.
But if
But absolutely.
But if they've got that there, and the referee goes across to look at it, why don't they connect it to the big screen?
So the
up
fans
high,
can see it.
So the fans can see it as the referee sees
And
it.
get the ref mic'd up like they do in rugby.
Yes, absolutely.
So everybody can hear what's going on.
You've got the explanation.
Rugby
haven't you?
uses the VAR brilliantly, and the referees are that comfortable with it. They are that much in control of 15 hulking guys.
But
on
in
both
fairness,
sides.
the rugby
Total
guys,
control.
the rugby guys don't confront the referees.
No.
They have respect
They
for the
don't,
referees.
but it's the referees that cause that. It's not the players who hold back. That's the referees.
Oh, I think it's ingrained in rugby players that you do not challenge the referee.
Yes, because the referee would just say, get off.
Yeah.
That's what they do in rugby, but they won't do it in football.
I guarantee if a referee was mic'd up, that there wouldn't be all this carry on with people surrounding refs because they wouldn't want to be showing themselves in a bad light. You might get the occasional person who has a go, but it would probably stop that. We've got to crack on. There's been a great comment here from Paul Saunders. He's took a bit of time writing this. Thoughts on Almiron? Still no goal, still no assists, and another game
Still
without
no
a shot
shot.
on target. Yes, he might track back and intercept the ball from time to time, and yes, he runs well with the ball, but had absolutely no end product. Also, Joe Linton is playing 90% of the time with his back to goal. He's been asked to play exactly like Rondon, but he isn't that type of player. Play him and St Maximin wide and Gale through the middle. That's Paul. Thanks for that, Paul. You've took a bit of time with that. And David Young said, refs need a microphone as well so we can hear, which is what I've just said.
Yeah.
Some great points from people tonight.
Terrific.
Terrific.
Yes.
We've got to finish off with...
thank you for that.
We've got to finish off with the West Ham game, looking ahead to it. 4 games without a win for West Ham. Obviously, Newcastle haven't, as a lot of fans on social media keep telling us, we've had a great start of the season, better than we did with Rafa. But, surely we make it quite clear on here with the stats. It's papering over the cracks at the minute.
By the way, this is going to become an interesting month because it's the 1st on Friday, and all this thing that Steve Bruce has managed to say, well, I've got a better record, or allow it to be said on his behalf, I've got a better record than Rafa. Will he be saying that come the end of November? Because Rafa, last year, got 3 wins in November.
Yes.
Right.
Now, so the one excuse there is at the moment that, the record this season is better than last. Might be about to change.
And which dressing room Newcastle or West Ham is right now going, hey, look who we're playing on Saturday.
Yeah. I would imagine it'll be West Ham coming up.
Never.
Never. Despite the fact that West Ham are having a torrid time.
We don't travel well to West Ham. There's been some horrendous performances there over the years, and it's it's one of those London clubs where you tend to come back with, not very much.
A smack bottom.
Yes, 100%. How do you see it going, lads?
I don't think I ever lost at West Ham. That's the silly thing when I was playing for Newcastle.
Which backs up what Mark Corby says. You need to get your boots on.
But it was a great place to go. We used to thoroughly enjoy going down there.
Newcastle don't score goals. We've been hammering on about that. They've never scored more than one a match all season.
Is it not times, John, for Steve Bruce to go in the dressing room and start throwing a few targets down, start
knocking a few heads together,
making demands of the players? You ain't scored. You've got to start. You're not getting crosses in. Start now. I want to see a cross coming in from you every 7 minutes or whatever. Yeah. And I try this as a manager, and I'll tell you what, it sticks things in people's heads as to what's important in 90 minutes of football out on that football pitch, and that instead of headless chickens running around, you concentrate them onto doing what's important. And if we had Almir on one side of the pitch and he's looking to get past his man, whip a cross in, all of a sudden you might see a different Joe Linton.
Yeah.
But he's not getting crosses whipped in. St Maximin, the number of times where he comes inside, because he knows that if he lifts his head, there's nobody in the box. So he's got to go himself.
He doesn't lift his head, mind. That's his trouble.
No, he doesn't.
That's his trouble. That's why he's 16. If he lifted his head, he would be a £30 million player. He wouldn't be 16 million.
When he doesn't, John, I'll grant you that for
Wonderful
sure.
skills, but he doesn't lift his head.
But at the moment, we've got a back four that I think they're doing well, but they're under so much pressure. You can see the pressure building on them, and mistakes will happen. And the same in midfield. And for Longstaff to get sent off, I would have hauled the three forwards into my dressing room after the game, and I would have said, right, you get in there and you apologise to Longstaff, because that lad has looked to be knocking you in all game and you haven't showed. You haven't showed at all for him. You haven't made a little run for him. You haven't gone and found a half a yard of space. Nothing. And in the end, the frustrations build up, and it's been brought on by other players around him. And I thought it was so unfair for Sean Longstaff to finish up in that situation, and it was caused by the people ahead of him. And so that was Steve Bruce's opportunity to kick backsides, and he failed to do it. He didn't do it.
A couple more points. Derek Smith says, good show, lads. Great points made. Keith Simmons says, we need to get Alan Shearer back out of retirement. He'll do the job. And Clark says, great show, lads. Thank you very much. Prediction for Saturday against West Ham?
Well, I was just about to give it and didn't score-wise.
Go on.
5 minutes ago. 2-0 lose.
Okay. 2-0 defeat from John.
Yeah.
Mal?
Yeah, I just can't see Newcastle scoring down there unless the centre half gets forward on a set piece or something.
Yeah.
Dear me. And West Ham to win 1-0.
1-0 to West Ham. Yeah, I've
breaks
got
my heart to say it.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, and mine at 2-0.
Mine as well. I am going to go for a defeat. I do think I think it'll be, again, it won't be a feast of football. I don't think West Ham. West Ham.
Not at all.
No, I'm going to go. I'll go for 3-0. You go for 2-0. You go for 1-0. Let's see where we go with that. It's disappointing, but I think people look back over these shows. We've done this is our 12th show, I think, this season, and I think most of the time we're predicting defeats or draws, which isn't great.
Awful. Absolutely awful. But the simple thing is that we're all going to say nil. Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
we're all going to say nil.
Yeah.
When Newcastle, on the occasions that they have scored, the most important thing, having gone 1-0 up, is get your second.
Yeah.
Or you make sure that you're tight as soon as the goal's gone in, and for 5 minutes you make sure that the opposition don't get back into it.
Yeah.
So, but then the most important thing after that 5 minutes is you get a second, because at 2-0, all of a sudden you can relax a little. You can really start to go and play the game of football as it should be played.
Yeah.
Newcastle haven't had that opportunity.
No, they haven't.
They haven't had that that lovely feeling of just being able to go and express themselves.
Yeah.
All the time, everything they do, it's either 0-0 or 1-0, or they're losing. So it's pressure, 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 pressure. Goalkeeper, defenders, midfield players. The only people who don't seem to show any pressure at all are the forwards.
Yeah. Sadly.
They're not. They don't seem worried or bothered about their dreadful, dreadful record.
Yeah. Sadly, time has beat us. That takes us nicely to the end of the show. Thanks again to UK Collection Services for sponsoring tonight's show. Don't forget you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube, which is simply NUFC Matters. Get on there, click the subscribe button. But big thank you to you, Malcolm, and big thank you to you, John. We'll see you again.
And a big thank you to you, Steve.
Yeah. Okay, as always, we're going to play out with some local music. Come across this band a few weeks ago down at the Newcastle Riverside. Fantastic band from the northeast called Velvet.